Welcome back to Doing Bar Things, and today in this decidedly low rent production, I'm going to talk very briefly about some of the findings that I had when the 7700 and 7800 XTs made their debut today. So they came out, they're now on sale. I mentioned in a video a few days ago, I think it was Sunday, that I would make a video on the 6th when the cards actually came out, and they have come out. And we pretty much got everything confirmed. Before I even get into this, I would highly suggest that you basically not even worry about these cards. If you already have a RTX 3080, an RTX 3090, 3080 Ti, if you have a 6800 XT from AMD, probably even a 6750 XT, anything that's in that range, basically anything that was mid-range or greater last generation, or if you can get your hands on something that is last generation. I mean, the 6800 XT, honestly, in a lot of things, keeps up or beats it. AMD, I think, just made a really weird decision by naming this card the 7800 XT. I'm going to allude to why I think that is here in a second. Excuse me. Just trying to talk here. All right. So first off, let's look at the current market situation. So you have 6800 XTs out there that you can get your hands on for around $500, right? You got your ASRock Phantom for $500. The 6800 XT Speedster is $530. Got some promo codes to get, like, say, the ASRock Tai Chi 6800 XT down to around $500. So there's some options still for the 6800 XT for about the same price. Unless you're worried about another 50 watts of power, I would actually recommend the 6800 XT in this range. The 6800 XT over a broader margin of games was better. And I know that sounds crazy because we're talking about a card that is literally named in such a way to make it appear as the successor to the 6800 XT. But it's really not. It's really sort of like the same as performance-wise. It's debuting at a cheaper price. It would be more of a 6750 or 6800 successor, sort of. But honestly, it would be something like if you had any of those cards, I would not upgrade to this card at all. Now, let's flip over to the 7000 series, and we can have a look-see. So the 7800 XT, yeah, so see here, like $519, $539. Here's one that's $499. So your very basic one is going to be $500, $519. They are a little bit more power efficient, somewhere in the 50 watts territory. So it's not bad. Like, there's a gain there. They are new, and they are basically the price of a used 6800 XT. And a 6800 XT basically, in a number of things, will actually beat this card. And then on occasion it will lose to this card, but those are some various circumstances. I have to rant a second. AMD is just doing what nVidia's been doing with these naming conventions. They're naming it something that should be higher performance than what it is. And I think right now I just got to call it out because I just think that, apparently they think people who build PCs are just daft or stupid, because we'll just go, oh look, it's a 7800 XT. I'm going to assume this is upgrade over a 6800 XT. And it's got an upgrade in name. The number's higher in the model number. I hate this so much. NVIDIA's done the same thing. I mean, that's why their stuff is all overpriced and out of whack, is because I've maintained that if you look at the actual dies of the 4060s, the 4060s should have been the 4050s. if you look at what their specs are. They would have been a solid upgrade phenomenally over the 4050 series. That's where they should have been priced, in a way, and they should have been marketed that way. They should have been called 4050s. The 4070 should have been the 4060, and so on. The 4080 could be the 4080. Like, it's not a bad gain in performance necessarily, but at over $1,000, that card doesn't make any sense. It should have been an $800 card, probably, even if you include inflation. I think $800 is probably the solid place where it should have ended up. And I would bet dollars to donuts nVidia could actually sell that card there and make money. But they chose not to, because they knew they could charge more for it. Market dictated that there's really nothing out there at that time to compete with them, and so they just did it. And yeah, it's really frustrating. So same thing for AMD. Because nVidia did it, AMD's like, well, we're going to follow in behind. Our stuff is by the numbers competitive in raster performance. Maybe we don't have the software suite yet, but we're going to charge more for the same tier of card anyway. So as a result, the 7900 XTX, $1,000, right? 7900 XT debuted at $900. No one bought it. It is now about $800, which I think we can see here. If we go to the 7900 XT, yeah, so about $800, like $789. Some of them are more expensive, like that's really getting kind of expensive. So anyway, $800. You got your 7900 XT, which is going to be $1,000. If we look at it, right? So AMD's lineup looks very strange. So you've got $1,000 cards, you've got $800 cards roughly, which again, this should have been, all of this should be compressed, but it's not compressed because nVidia charged so much for their cards that it was like. But you do have this really strange gap between a 7900 XT, which is like $800, and the 7800 XT, which is like $500. One thing to recognize: two very different buyers will be here. So honestly, those are the main complaints I actually have about the 7800 XT, is that it's named horribly. If they would have named it a 7700 or even 7700 XT, fantastic, like great. They price it right at about that $450 mark. I don't even necessarily think they got to go down that far in price. The price is okay for the current marketing conditions. I think 450 to 480 would have been fine. They priced it at 500. Boohoo. That's not going to kill a card that's this price. But the naming convention is just so. It really does. Really, what I think is going to happen is they're going to come in with a 50 series, so it'll be like the 7950 XTX, the 7950 XT, the 7850 XT. Maybe they do a 7800 XTX when they do a refresh. I don't know, but there's a large gap here between $500 and $800 that I bet they've got some silicone out there they could cover that with. So I don't think they do this until next year, maybe, if they do it. But then we'll have to see. I haven't heard a lot about that in the rumor mill. Most of the things that you're seeing with Moore's Law is Dead and various other outlets, Red Tech Gaming, is not talking about a refresh of these. It's talking more about what's happening with the next card and then the card after that. So that should tell you we may not see any new cards for a while. Is kind of what that's telling me. So that being what it is, the 6800 XT is going to sell out, and then that price point of around $500 is going to be this card, which again, in of itself isn't horrible. It's just not a replacement for that card. I'm sorry. It's really a strange deal. So what are we getting? Well, here's the positive side. The 6800 XT and 7800 XT for a new $500 card is going to be the business. Like, it's probably going to be the best deal. It is that much faster than the 7700 XT. AMD made sure of that. They're not going to sell very many 7700 XTs with it being $50 less when there's like 20% more roughly performance to be had from the 7800 XT. That is enough to justify an extra $50. And undoubtedly some of these will start to go on sale at some point. And it's already saying out of stock, like for most of these. I wonder if I literally refresh the page if more will be out of stock. No, these are still in there. Okay. I wonder if they only had these to start with, but yeah. So right now you can get it with Starfield. That's a hot game right now. So yeah, 7800 XT I think is kind of the buy, really. The 7700 XT isn't a bad card. I don't think it's that bad of a card. I think that it needs to go down in price. I do think it's a little. It is actually high enough that it's going, okay, that's a little bit too high. I mean, 40 or 50 more bucks to get a 7800 XT. They're encouraging you to buy the 7800 XT is what they're doing. Let's face it, that's what they're doing. And that sucks. Like, I hate that because we all know they're going to reduce the price on this. I think what they're really waiting on is for the lower end 6000 series cards to all get kind of sold completely out, which they basically have stopped making them, right? So your 6750 XT, 600 XT, 6700, and then your 6600. Oh my God, these naming conventions. All of these cards, basically, I think they're waiting for them to kind of go bye-bye. So they're not going to price this overly aggressive until those go away. So really, AMD's competing with itself in that regard. Okay, now, what about nVidia? There's no reason with these cards out there to touch the 4060 with a 10-foot pole. Just no reason. I wouldn't. I would never recommend for someone right now to buy a 4060 over one of these cards. Literally, unless there is just something that they got to have an NVIDIA card for that is, and it's in a build that they just cannot budget out a more expensive video card to go with a higher end NVIDIA card instead of the 60 series, I'm not doing it. The 4060 16 gig is the same price as the 7800 XT, and it just gets raffle stomped. It's not the same level of performance. It's not. The 7800 XT is more of a 4070 in performance, and it beats the 4070 in a lot of things. And I think it has more longevity because it has 16 gigs of VRAM. The 4070 only has 12, which will be a problem that we're going to start running into with cards that don't have enough VRAM. 8 gigs is already kind of like, and soon I think it will be 10 gigs, so my 3080 will start to feel its age. There's some games that actually push that today if you go and get them. And then I think here in another year, everybody's going to start complaining about 10 and 12 gig VRAM cards like it's not enough. It's for various reasons. That's maybe something we can go into a different video. There's a number of videos out there now explaining or kind of talking about it, but VRAM is starting to be an issue. So I think the 7800 XT is the sweet spot. I think the 6800 XT is the real probably thing you should go for. You should look to see if you can find a 6800 XT at the same price or below what your 7800 XTs are, and then try to get your hands on one of those. If you can't get your hands on one of those at the right price, go ahead and buy yourself 7800 XT. Get it brand new. You'll have your warranty. The deal is they're basically the same card. There's not much difference. There's a little bit of difference. The 6800 XT actually wins in a number of things, but we're not talking just, again, giant leap here. And I'm interested to see what the 7800 XT does overclocked, because I bet you can beat that performance pretty readily overclocked. They are bigger cards than I anticipated. That's one interesting thing. Like the, oh, look, see, it's sold out already. Yeah, these are going to sell out like hotcakes. I was thinking that these were going to be the cards that people are waiting on. because there's just no good mid-range cards. The 4060 was such a flop, and this card proves it. I mean, you go out there and look at the benchmarks; it just whops the 4060 in every way, shape, and form. But if you look at like this card, where is it? Come on, where's the size? There we go. 326 millimeters. It's not a tiny card. That's pretty big, actually. The biggest 4090 is the ROG card, which is 348 millimeters. Memory serves, maybe 350. So this is a pretty big card. It's not the most giant card, and that size is actually a good size to fit in most of your normal mid towers. Most of your normal mid towers, like say your Fractal Design Torrent, Define, your Corsair 4000D, which is a ubiquitous tower that's been around for a long time now. All of these towers have been around. This card's going to fit in there. Most of those towers fit 330 millimeters at least, and this card will fit in there. So that makes it, they hit the sweet spot, a lot of these companies, I bet, with like the actual length of the card to allow them to fit in these mid towers, which would be great. Like for anybody that's running a 1080, 1060, 2060, 2070, let's see the cat in the background, any of the 1000 or 2000 series NVIDIA cards, or like maybe a 5700 XT, an old, I want to say Vega card, maybe, but any of those, a Polaris card, like something like that. Yeah, these should be nice upgrades. They're not ridiculous price wise, at least compared to the rest of the market. So yeah, like it's weird. It's positive. It's kind of negative. The marketing departments for these companies are just, I mean, they're really tarnishing the image of their companies. I hate this, really, about how they're trying to change names and make something appear. It's like, stop playing shell games to people who build PCs, for crying out loud. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and like say that this should be like a 7800. It should be a 7700 XT or something. Come up with a new naming convention altogether. Please get away from all these crazy numbers all the time. Call it the RX-7. There you go. Mazda may have a problem with that, but just call it something. But this is on the positive end. They appear to be all intents and everything I've seen. They appear to be decent cards. So that's my 2 cents. I will keep going and looking at some benchmarks and stuff. I want to see how this card does overclocked in some various benchmarks and see some people tweak it and see what it does. I think that could be really interesting. But if you're looking for my buying advice, which again, all 30 of you probably aren't, you're just listening to me because maybe I ramble and you like the silver fox hair and you just want to listen to me talk, that's fine. It's totally great. But my buying advice is this. Forget about the 4060 if you haven't already. Probably forget about the 4070 if you haven't already. Anything in that price range, buy you a 7800 XT, or if you can get your hands on it, find a used. Now, do used with caution. Find yourself a used 6800 XT, or maybe even buy a brand new 6800 XT if somebody's just trying to get rid of it off the shelf, and you'll be very happy with that card or the 7800 XT. If you're looking in that $400 to $500 range, that's pretty much what you want to do. 7700 XT is an okay card, but it's kind of that 20% down from the 7800 XT that I think for the extra $50. Unless you find a 7700 XT for $400, okay, that'll save you $100. That probably is worth it. If you're looking for a $300 card, then consider the lower end last gen AMD stuff. Consider Arc is actually strangely kind of carved out a niche there, which is really odd to me, but they sort of have. I mean, that may be where the 77 XT honestly should be, is maybe to put pressure on those cards, $350 even. But that, you know, I get why they didn't price that in today's market. It wouldn't make any sense. So that's kind of it. We'll talk about this some more. Guys, y'all have a great one. It may be a little bit again. I'm sort of in this house selling mode, so I don't know when exactly my next video will be, but hopefully it'll be relatively soon. I want you guys to have a great day and an awesome rest of your week. Oh, and like and subscribe if you would, if you'd be so kind, especially if you've gone this far. Man, good on you. You deserve a gold star. Anyway, thank you.